I want to talk about something which I think you're a little bit excited about, which is the digitization of gold. Why don't
Yes.
you tell us about
Yeah.
that? Because that feels like something new that people don't know too much about, but makes a lot of sense. So, what's your take
Yeah.
on it?
Well, I'm an ardent believer that this is going to make a big difference to the sector, and it's been slow to take root. But the technologies are there and they're available. And what we're talking about is the digitization of the gold ledger. Gold ledger is a record of every bar that's in storage, and it forms the vast majority of the net worth of the gold business. If you think about the gold business, it's about 8 trillion. There's a certain percentage that's held by central banks. There's a certain percentage that's held in jewelry. And then there's a certain percentage that's available in above ground bullion storage. And that number is in the trillions. So we're talking about a huge market. I mean, you talk about gold versus Bitcoin. Gold absolutely swamps Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like a flea on the back of an elephant compared to gold. So the digitization of that gold that's above surface is absolutely required for gold to enter the modern age. And by modern age, what I mean is to lower the trading spreads, to allow gold to be moved in a reliable, quick, safe fashion between investment accounts for an individual, and to allow gold to be spent in small increments as a payment system as well, which it's never been able to do before. So when you look at those goals, those are all entirely possible now with technologies that are already working and on the table. So why isn't it taken off like Bitcoin? Well, it's because there's existing players in gold that are making too much money keeping the system the way it is. And we're talking about the LBMA and its members. We're talking about the big traders in gold. We're talking about even the World Gold Council and the GLD itself, which is a phenomenal money-making ETF. And most of all, we're talking about the spreads in the business to the retail customer, which are extremely punitive. Whether it's coins or whether it's even buying small bars on storage. Who would invest in an asset that's supposed to be liquid if you're being charged 5 or 7% to go in and out of it? I mean, it's never going to take hold. So what digital gold does is, whether it's on the blockchain, which I think is by far the most exciting and secure way of building the gold ledger digitally, or whether it's simply in electronic form. If you have a certificate of deposit that has now been verified and put into an electronic contract, those can both be sent in seconds. They can be traded in seconds. They can be traded in with very low margins. Theoretically, it's all based on the claim that you have to the physical gold. And it would not work, in our view, unless an individual having such an electronic certificate could go to the point of origin where it's being held and claim their gold physically. That has to be the case. So once again, it's Sprott standing up for what we believe in, which is you need physical gold ownership to properly store that value outside of the financial system.
So that, I mean, okay, obviously you're talking about gold here, but blockchain in itself has had a difficult ride in anything other than security, because people need to know how to harness it, governments need to know how to control it, banks need to know how to manage that process, because it sends information in a way which is hard for people. It's encrypted, heavily encrypted. It's hard for people to break that down. So I think until you get the big players who you mentioned, how do they make their piece from this? How do people understand how they monetize it? It's going to be very difficult to get the kind of groundswell of support that it needs, isn't it? I mean, do you see this? It's been happening slowly, but it's been happening slowly in lots of sectors. So is this going to get over the line commercially?
I think it is going to get over the line. because I think it's too compelling for instance, the LBMA not to digitize what they already describe as London Good Delivery Gold. So it also ties in with ESG and proper provenance on the gold. Once the gold's produced, it should be able to be traced. And if it's properly produced and ethically produced, should be able to be traced onto a digital certificate. So the LBMA and its members have too much to gain by not endorsing this at some point. They just want to figure out how they're going to make the most money from it, frankly, which is within their rights. And so we do think it's going to happen. In terms of the regulation, which is what you were touching on there, it's pretty simple for gold. Gold needs to go onto the electronic rail and off of the electronic rail in a regulated fashion. It's light regulation, but it's a know your client requirement primarily. So you're not going to be able to create digital gold and send it around the internet to criminals and then have them take it out in some fashion in some country where it can't be noticed that it's being taken out. Perhaps in the interim, it can be sent through the the hypermarkets, the unregulated internet, but going in and coming out, it's regulated. So for gold, it's pretty simple. And the existing regulated entities that handle gold will be handling digital gold. There's not going to be, black market dealers in digital gold.
Okay.
So that I think is fairly straightforward, and it's already been established.
It has. I guess what I'm trying to get to is, how quickly does this get to a point where, retail family offices, people outside of the institutional bubble can access a product like that, understand it first of all, and then access a product like that.
Yeah, so I think the information and the technology is there to be understood. It's working. So small commercial, we have a website that we JV'd with APMEX, which is the world's largest gold coin online dealer. And that website is called One Gold. And you can go on One Gold and you can buy physical digital gold within 1.5 seconds.
Fantastic. Well, we'll put that link
at a very acceptable spread, like an institutional-like spread.
Okay.
And it will be stored for you. So there's certain websites that are up and running and that have the capability of handling it already. The question is, when does it get to be the volumes that the gold market is known for? The gold market's an incredibly liquid market. 140 billion a day of trading, 90 billion a day, 70 billion to 90 billion a day of settlements. You need some big organizations going digital in order for it to really take off.